All right, guys, today I'm testing a very simple trading idea, the opening range breakout. The goal of this video is not to predict the market. The goal is to take one simple rule, backtest it from 2019 to 2026, and see what the data says. This chart is just a simple example, so the rules are easy to understand. The setup uses the first 15 minutes of the trading day from 9:30 to 9:45 Eastern Time Zone. During that time, I mark the high and the low of the opening range. In this example, the opening range is 60.50 and the opening range low is 60.38. If the price breaks above 60.50, I enter long at 60.51. My stop loss goes at 60.38. That means I'm risking 13 points. For this test, I'm using a 1R take profit. Since the risk is 13 points, the target is 13 points above the entry, so the take profit is 60.64. The rules are simple. No indicators, no news filters, no guessing, just the opening range breakout. If price breaks above the range, I take a buy. If price breaks below the range, I take a sell. One trade per day. I'm going to run this in MetaTrader 5 from 2019 to 2026 and look at the full report. I want to see total trades, wins, losses, win rate, drawdown, profit factor, and losing streaks. One trade means nothing. 1 week means nothing. I want to see how this performs over years of data. That is the only way to know if the idea actually has an edge. A lot of people show one perfect trade on YouTube. That is not what I want to do. On this channel, I want to show the wins, the losses, the ugly trades, and the days where the setup fails. The point is simple. Test the strategy and let the data decide. All right, now we're looking at the actual MetaTrader 5 report for the first opening range breakout test. Before I even look at the profit, I want to confirm the settings first, because if the settings are wrong, the results mean nothing. This test is on the S&P 500 on the 1 minute chart from January 1st, 2019 to May 14, 2026. This version is very simple. It takes a long only trade, meaning it only takes buy trades. Shorts were turned off for the first test. The opening range starts at 16:30 broker time, which represents the 9:30 market open in this setup. The opening range is 15 minutes, so builds the range from 9:30 to 9:45. The strategy enters when price breaks above the opening range high. Stop loss goes at the opening range low. The take profit is set to 1R, meaning the target is the same size as the risk. One important thing to understand is that the risk is not always 13 points. The 13-point risk was only from the example chart. In the real backtest, the opening range changes every day. Some days the opening range is small, some days the opening range is bigger. So the stop loss and take profit are based on the day's opening range. For example, if the opening range risk is 10 points, then the 1R target is 10 points. If the opening range risk is 20 points, then the 1R target is 20 points. So this test is not testing a fixed 13-point target. It is testing the theory of buying the breakout and using the opening range as the risk. So this is a clean baseline version. No indicators, no filters, no guessing, just a basic long only opening range breakout. Now let's look at the actual results. The test had 1,490 total trades. Out of those trades, 734 were winners and 756 were losers. That gives us a win rate of 49.26%. At first, that looks confusing because there were actually more losing trades than winning trades. So the question is, how did the strategy still make more money? The answer is simple. The average winner was bigger than the average loser. The average winning trade was about $143.48. The average losing trade was about $130.88. That can happen because every trade is based on the opening range size for the day. Not every trade has the same stop loss size. Not every trade has the same target size. Some days have a larger opening range and some days have a smaller opening range. So even though this test had slightly more losses than wins, the winning trades paid a little bit more than the losing trades lost. That is why the report still ended up positive. The gross profit was $105,314.29. The gross loss was negative $98,946.54. So when you subtract the losses from the wins, the final net profit was positive $6,365.75. The profit factor was 1.06. For me, that means that the strategy made more than it lost, but not by a huge amount. A profit factor above 1 is positive, but 106 is still a small edge. I would not call this a strong finish strategy yet. The expected payoff was $4.27 per trade. The equity drawdown was about 4.11%, and the maximum consecutive losing streak was 7 losses in a row. So the good news is the basic version did finish positive, but the honest answer is that it's not strong enough yet for me to say this is a complete strategy. One important thing to understand with this test is that I'm treating it as a simple stop loss or take profit baseline test. Once the trade opens, the trade is judged by whether it hits the stop loss or the 1R target. The report also shows that some trades were held longer than the same trading day, so I do not want to call this a perfect intraday only test yet. This report shows that the basic long opening range breakout had a small positive edge, but it still needs more testing. So my final conclusion for this test is simple. The basic long only opening range breakout with a 1R target did make money in this report, but that is small and the test needs more work. This is not a finished strategy yet. This is the baseline. The point of this test is to see whether the raw idea has any edge. Does buying the breakout above the first 15-minute opening range work over years of data? Based on this report, the answer is there is a small positive edge, but not enough to stop here. Now that I have the baseline, the next step is to test one improvement at a time. The point of this channel is not to force a strategy to look good. The point is to test the idea honestly and let the data decide. So that wraps up the first test. The basic long only opening range breakout did finish positive, but the edge was small. For me, this is not a finish strategy yet. It's just a starting point. Now that we have the baseline, the next step is to change one thing at a time and see what actually improves the results. In the next video, I'll test the next version and compare it against this one. This video is only for testing and education. I'm not telling anyone to trade this strategy. I'm just showing the rules, the backtest, and the results. That's it for this test. Now we keep building.